Episode 1 begins with Irene and Franklin, a married couple that have been together for decades. After dinner, the couple decide to go and see the stars, and he then rolls Irene in her wheelchair to the shed where a secret staircase is located. The two go down the stairs and through what looks like an old mine shaft and find a chamber that allows them to be teleported to another deserted planet. After enjoying the sight for a while, the couple head home and stay up through most of the night, thinking in bed. The next morning, the two head up to go to Irene's hospital for a checkup, and Franklin drops Irene off at the hospital and heads to the market. Irene speaks to her doctor about her condition, and her doctor thinks that Irene's worsening state might be because of depression, which Irene denies. Sandra prescribes her patient a few things and suggests that she gets an in-house caretaker. While playing for his items at the market, Franklin receives a call from his granddaughter who tells him that she would be coming to visit. She tells him to meet her at a restaurant a bit later and hangs up, and Franklin heads to the restaurant to meet his granddaughter, Denise. After some small talk, she tells Franklin that she's worried because one of their neighbors saw him pushing Irene in a wheelchair at night. Since Irene's accident, she's been thinking about moving them into a care facility, and Franklin appreciates her concern for the safety, but assures her that they're content where they are. He then explains that he finds fulfillment in taking care of his wife. After Irene's medical appointment, she waits for Franklin in the hospital lobby for a long time, and concerned that he hasn't answered his phone, she decides to go across the street to visit an old friend. Franklin goes home with his groceries, having forgotten about Irene. Realizing his mistake, he hurries back and picks up his wife, and Irene was worried that her husband might be getting too old to take care of both of them, so she asks him if he thinks that they should move into a home, which Franklin refuses, saying that he knows how much she loved watching the stars in the other world. While they're out, Byron, their next door neighbor who just moved to town, heads over to Franklin's shade to investigate. He'd started to suspect his next door neighbor of hiding something after he saw them walking around at night. After looking around for a while, he returns home having found nothing. At home, Irene was having a difficult conversation with her husband about selling the house and moving on if she were to die soon. He promises to do so, but tells her that she should stop talking about her death, and the two have a wonderful night together, cuddled up next to one another. After Franklin falls asleep, Irene gets up and writes a letter explaining her next actions and bidding him farewell. She then heads to the shed, transporting herself to the other world, and she tries to open the door that would let her go out of the safe room that they used to watch the stars from and to the other world, where she is sure that she would die. Then suddenly, she hears something from behind her and turns around to find a strange man on the floor begging for help. And in the morning, Franklin wakes up and looks out the window, hearing his wife's voice outside. He sees that she's fallen and hurries downstairs in a panic, and when he picks her up, checking if she was hurt, she tells him that there was someone in the shed. Franklin hurries down and finds the hurt man on the ground, and the couple take him inside the house and check for injuries when they see blood on him. Panicked, Franklin calls the police but is chastised by his wife, saying that they might find what's under the shed. When the sheriff arrives, they tell him that the man ran away and they get rid of him. In a different part of the world, a single mother and her daughter live on a farm in Argentina. After breakfast, Stella drives her daughter to school, which is located in town. At school, Tony is approached by the cute boy that she had a crush on and is asked to go out that night. After school, Tony helps her mom make their dinner, and after she goes to her room saying that she needs to do her homework, she then dresses up and sneaks out of her room and meets her crush. He sees her house and is surprised that they have a church in their backyard. Inside the church, the boy confesses that he had come there because his friends had dared him to go inside her house, which the students at their school considered to be haunted. Suddenly, her mom barges inside the church and kicks out the boy, telling her daughter to go to her room. Upset with her mom, Tony goes to her room while Stella stays in the church. She opens a secret door where a dark staircase is located, and she goes down and across a tunnel, where she finds the transportation device just like the one Franklin and Irene had. Stella then makes sure that everything is where it needs to be and closes the door. Back in America, Franklin and Irene go through the stranger's backpack, and they're confused by the items that they find in the bag. They hear a loud sound and hurry up the stairs to find the stranger, who seems to have developed a fever. Franklin goes to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine, and the next morning in Argentina, Stella wakes up and finds out that Tony had run away. She catches up to her and apologizes, but Tony doesn't want to hear it. She's upset that living in the middle of nowhere has made her friendless, and her mother never wants to move. Stella tells her daughter that she's made a promise to her father to take care of the chapel. She explains that everyone in their family were guardians of something special and Tony would find out when she's older. Suddenly, the alarm on Stella's phone starts blaring and she realizes that somebody has broken into the special room. The two then hurry out of the cafe where they've been sitting in and drive home. In Farnsworth, Illinois, Irene is startled when the stranger wakes up, unaware of his surroundings. He tells her that his name is Jude and is not sure where he's actually from because he seemed to have developed amnesia. Franklin returns from the pharmacy and finds his wife speaking to Jude after she introduces the two, and Franklin realizes that his wife seems a bit pale and takes her downstairs to get her a bite to eat. On the farm in Argentina, Stella and her daughter finally arrive at their house, and Stella gets her gun and then threatens the man sitting and eating at their table before realizing who he was. He tells Stella to relax and sit down so they can talk, and she sits down next to him, and after putting her gun on the table, he tells her that he was glad that she still had a gun because she'll be needing it. Back in Farnsworth, after Irene goes to bed, Franklin decides to be honest with Jude and tells him that he doesn't trust him. He was allowing him to stay there because of Irene, and after he makes sure that everybody has gone to bed, Jude sneaks out of the room and goes to the bathroom and then cuts an opening on his leg and takes out a small spherical object which he crushes in the sink. At the start of episode 3 the next morning, Franklin goes to the pawn shop to get the owner's opinion on the coins that he had found in Jude's bag, and the man tells him that they were genuine Spanish doubloons, but he can't tell him where they're minted. On their farm, Stella and Tony were taking care of their alpacas when they were joined by Cornelius. Saying that they need to speak in private, he tells Stella that he has a special assignment for her, and he orders her to take Tony along because he believes that she's ready, and he threatens her that if she doesn't, he'll take her daughter away. Denise is at her office where she works as an intern until she graduates in her MBA, and her coworkers ask her if she wants to go out for lunch, but she refuses, saying that she has to finish work. Her boss, who she just made a business plan for, appreciates her work and offers her a full-time position. Hesitant, she tells him that she needs to think about it, and she then hurries to the bathroom to calm herself down after having a panic attack. Back at their house, Irene looks around Jude's room while he takes a bath, and in one of the cupboards, she finds a glowing object but places it back where she finds it when she hears footsteps. While looking at his clothing, Jude gets a flashback of when he was struggling with a man, and after getting dressed, Jude joins Irene downstairs for some ginger ale, but Frank wasn't happy about it. He takes her to the kitchen and tells her not to get attached to the man, but she convinces him to spend some time with Jude and get to know him a little better. Franklin then takes Jude with him to run errands, and he then takes the man to a bus stop, gives him $5,000, and tells him to never come back. Jude refuses to take Franklin's money and tells him to thank Irene for him, and as he walks away, Franklin feels bad and calls him back, and at the house, Irene takes out the glowing object and examines it, but when she puts it on the table, it makes it disappear. Feeling shocked, she slides it back into the jar. While cleaning up the mess, Irene is surprised by her granddaughter, who came over to visit. As they were having tea, Franklin and Jude arrive and she tells her that they have finally hired a caretaker. The family as well as Jude sit down for dinner, and Denise asks him some questions about his skills. After, they all gather in the living room for ice cream, and Denise tells them that she has to leave, and Jude offers to walk her out, and she explains her grandparents' habits after threatening him about taking care of them well. Irene and Franklin settle on their couch while Jude does the dishes, and Franklin offers to take Irene to see the stars, telling her that they haven't been able to do it alone since their guest came to live with them. She then tells him that she is too tired to go anywhere and that her legs were all cramped up. He then offers to bring her a soothing cream while Jude joins them in the living room. While they were in private, Jude tells Irene that he didn't come there by accident and that he was looking for his father that abandoned him when he was a child. In the bathroom, Franklin finds the bloody knife and the items Jude had thrown in the sink. Outside their house, their next-door neighbor goes to Franklin's shed to investigate some more. He was angry because he thought Franklin had ratted him out for foregoing signatures to the councilman's committee, and Byron searches the shed and finds the trapdoor that leads to the chamber and heads inside. Cornelius bids Stella farewell and leaves, and Stella talks to her daughter about a trip and she's excited. They both pack a bag and Stella takes her daughter to the chapel in the secret tunnel. Stella explains to her daughter that their family had accepted something special generations ago and takes her into the chamber. She calibrates the device on where she wants to go, and then they're instantly transported there. The mother and daughter come out and find themselves transported to New York, and a little distance away, they meet a man who is cooking ribs, and he tells them that they've made it perfectly just in time. When Tony asks her mother who he was, she tells her that he was one of them. On episode 4, Jude wakes up covered in sweat after he has another nightmare. He gets the small ball with the glowing device that Irene had seen and takes it out back and buries it. Suddenly, he hears a sound coming from behind him and he sees Byron walking his dog. When Byron tells Jude that it was private property and that he was trespassing, Jude explains that he was Irene's new caretaker. Back at the house, Franklin offers Jude some coffee and then accuses him of lying about losing his memory. Before Jude can say anything, Irene walks in and tells him that they were going to the library to see if they had any record of Jude's father. At the library, the clerk offers to do an image search on the Polaroid picture that Jude has of his father, saying that they have everything covered. Franklin leaves and goes to the police. He then asks the sheriff to do a fingerprint check on Jude, which he refuses to do without cause. The library clerk returns with a match and reveals that Jude's father had been arrested several times. Franklin returns to pick up Jude and Irene from the library, and then they proceed to drive home. Stella and Tony wake up in one of Nick's trailers, and Stella hears a knock, so she goes to open the door and finds Nick standing there. He tells them that they should get started, and the girls follow him out, and they go to his workspace where he uses his computer to find serial numbers to locate Epi's son. Nick takes Stella aside and asks her whether her daughter knows what they're doing, but Stella assures him that Tony doesn't know anything and warns him not to tell her. The three then head out to the location Nick had found out, and going against her mother's wishes, Nick asks Tony to get him a Coke from the built-in cooler in the van, revealing the rifle and a lot of bullets. Back at the house, Franklin and Irene have another fight about Jude while he was out chopping wood. Franklin tells his wife to stop thinking of the man like their son Michael, who killed himself years ago. He then storms out, telling her not to wait up. Irene invites Jude in and offers him a sandwich before asking him why he was being so secretive. He tells her that he doesn't know what she's talking about and offers to leave if she's not happy with how he is now. During their conversation, Irene gets a visitor, and it was Chandra, a former student of Irene's and a person that's been recently fired from her job at the elderly homes because she was a kleptomaniac. Chandra offers to work for Irene but is told that they've recently hired Jude as help. Upset by the news, Chandra goes to the downstairs bathroom, which is connected to Jude's room, and steals a metal rod that he's been keeping in his bag. Later, the York residents get a call which Jude picks up. It was the pawn store owner calling about the coins Franklin had shown him and explaining that he had found someone who could tell him something about them. Jude gets the number from the owner and calls it, and when the man on the other line picks up, Jude calls him Gabriel, but the man pretends that it was a wrong call. Sure that he was speaking to Gabriel, Jude asks what the man knew about the coins, but he only whispered secret words and hung up. After Irene goes to bed, Jude goes through his bag and finds the metal rod missing. He realizes that Chandra must have taken it and heads to her house, finding her address on the business card that she left. On the way, he gets lost and is forced to go into the bar to ask the bartender about the address. There he runs into Denise, who invites him for drinks, and after getting drunk with Denise and her friend, Jude leaves and starts the journey home but is caught by a police officer. Franklin comes home drunk with Byron after they spent hours drinking and playing pool. In his drunken state, Byron had confessed to seeing the tunnel and the chamber under the shed, asking Franklin to show it to him, and Franklin takes him to the chamber, but is surprised when the machine doesn't work, convincing Byron that he was just messing with him. Irene had woken up in the middle of the night and found herself alone in the house, and worried about his safety, she takes the car out for a drive looking for Jude. On the road, Jude stops her car when she sees a police car with its door open. As we start episode 5, Irene and Jude are sitting inside an interrogation room in the police station, and Irene is upset that Jude ran away after she told him that she could help him. She asks him to tell her the truth, and Jude tells her that he has spent his life trapped against his will by people that lived to protect the secret that was in the chamber, explaining that there were a lot more of them out there. Jude tells Irene that his only chance of survival was finding Gabriel before the people send someone after him. He also comes clean about the blood that they found on him, telling her that it was from a man that was trying to stop him from escaping, and choosing to believe him, Irene speaks to the officer and convinces her to let Jude go. On the car ride home, Jude explains why he left the house at that hour and how he was sure that Chandra has taken his property, and Irene assures him that they would get it back the next day. Nick and Stella, along with her daughter, finally make it to the cell tower, and Nick goes to retrieve a package for Grandpa Epi's friend by climbing the tower. While they wait, their van is approached by another worker, and Stella is forced to incapacitate him as her daughter watches. Franklin and Irene go to her weekly hospital checkups and find out from their doctor that Irene has improved immensely. She encourages them to continue what they're doing because it was keeping Irene healthy. When they get home, they find their granddaughter jokingly talking with Jude on the couch. Franklin heads over to Byron's house and gives him an old photograph film and tells him to develop it if he wants to know the truth. He then takes Denise out to run some errands, and as soon as they leave, Irene and Jude head to Chandra's house. Irene pretends like she came to discuss hiring her as a caretaker, while Jude quietly breaks into the house and finds his property, as well as what looked like a similar tracking chip to the one he destroyed. Jude rushes to the living room and confronts Chandra about being a thief, and she confesses to her crime, saying that she did it because they were ungrateful. Irene promises that she would stay quiet if Chandra forgets everything that happened, and after getting the pictures developed, Byron is shocked to see the photos of the chamber and the planet outside the window. In the privacy of his study, he does research and finds out articles about a secret door that allows transportation. He then meets Franklin in his shed and shows him what he found. Together they discover something missing from the teleportation device, and Franklin is sure that Jude had taken it. Byron mentions to Franklin that he had seen Jude in the woods a while ago and thinks that he may have hidden the object there. The two then leave the shed and Franklin runs into his wife and Jude as they pull up into the driveway. Byron heads out into the woods and finds the place the object is buried as the dirt around it floats, rendering the laws of physics void. He then proceeds to dig out the jar and is surprised to find the glowing ball. As we proceed to episode 6, Franklin walks into their house and finds his wife in a great mood, opening music on their player and asking him to dance. The two share a beautiful moment as they dance until Franklin notices Jude and leaves. That night after dinner, Franklin goes out to take the trash and finds Irene's note that she left before she attempted to off herself. After helping Jude clean up the dishes, Irene heads upstairs and finds her husband sitting on the bed looking very upset. He pulls out the letter that he found from his pocket, showing her that he read it. He then tells her that he can't be there and leaves the house. Franklin is woken up by Byron after he spends the night on their couch, and Byron shows him what he had found buried in the woods, but Franklin doesn't seem too interested. Franklin then tells his neighbor that he could try it himself and leaves. At the York residence, Jude is eager to follow up on the lead he and Irene had found, and hearing Irene was feeling under the weather, he calls Denise and the two head to find their lead. Bill Jr. welcomes them in, and they show him the necklace that he had found at Chandra's house. Bill tells them that his father had met a hitchhiker and witnessed the man slice open his ankle, and takes the tracker out and gives it to Bill's father as a memento. When Franklin returns home, he confronts his wife about what she did, and Irene apologizes for being selfish, but what she tried to do was too much for Franklin, and he was unable to continue the conversation. A few minutes later, the sheriff arrives after following up on Franklin's report and finding out that Jude had a long criminal record and a history of mental illness. When he explains his findings to Irene, she tells him that she already fired Jude. When Jude gets back home, Irene confronts him about the information that the sheriff had told her, and Jude assures her that it was all a lie made up by the people who were tracking him. We then see the traveling group, Nick, Stella, and her daughter, grabbing some food at the fast food place. While they eat, Nick starts antagonizing Stella about her past, mentioning Caleb, Stella's old partner who is now dead. Angry, Stella breaks Nick's nose and steals his car, leaving him all alone. Back in Farnsworth, Irene, Jude, and Denise decide to take a little road trip to find out more about Jude's dad. Franklin gets a visit from Byron, who's figured out what was wrong with the machine. He explains that it was out of energy and needed a little bit of boost from the generator that he had connected it to, but when he turns it on, the machine gets power and overloads and releases energy that fries all the electricity in the area. Byron realizes that he succeeded in fixing the machine, and he and Franklin use the device to go and see the deserted planet. Byron then stares at the world from the window in awe. As we start episode 7, after the great revelation, Byron is now adamant about going out and seeing the planet, and Franklin confesses that he's always thought about it, but he was too scared to try. He shows Byron the spacesuits that he made 10 years ago, but admits that he couldn't get the air pressure to work, and the two decide to work on the suits together. Hours of being on the road have brought Irene, Dennis, and Jude to a very quiet town, and when they find the right address, the three knock on the door, which is answered by Hannah, the owner of the house. Jude shows her the Polaroid pictures and she immediately recognizes the man on it, and she explains that Gabriel had come to her house 15 years ago and that they'd been lovers for a brief time before he moved on. Hannah then asks them to stay for the night so she can tell them more stories, and they agree. Later it's revealed that Hannah had a secret base where she was tracking the coins with a partner. In her room, Denise confronts Nana, asking her why she didn't like her as she's always felt shunned by her grandma. Irene tears up and explains that she's always felt ashamed for not helping her father back when he was depressed. She's sure that Denise had grown up without a father because of her, and Denise assures her that it was never her fault, and they embrace. The next morning before the group leaves, Jude finds a book on Hannah's shelf and is sure that it belongs to his father. Inside, he finds strange symbols just like the one on the steel bar, and after he steals the book, they all head home. At the chamber, Franklin and Byron have figured out how to make their suits work and were about to embark on a new journey. Franklin chose to stay behind while Byron opens the door and heads out, and the two communicate via radio, but a few minutes later, Byron starts exhibiting strange behavior and starts talking nonsense. And although Franklin asks him to return, Byron keeps walking and disappears. Irene takes her grandmother down to the chamber, believing that it was time for her to know, and she then tries to explain what the place was and how Jude got here, but Denise was upset thinking that she's being lied to. At their motel, Stella and Tony are tracked down by Cornelius, who was upset, and Stella explains that she had found a lead, a woman named Chandra, who might know where Jude was. The group then set up a meeting with Chandra, who refuses to talk unless she's paid, and Cornelius hurts her until she reveals the truth and then murders her. Cornelius, Stella, and Tony then stand together as they bury Chandra's car with her corpse in it. On episode 8, the next morning, Irene is happy to have woken up in her bed and mentions this to her husband, who was sitting right next to her. Franklin is concerned that he hadn't heard anything about his friend and consistently checks on him. Jude goes to search for the jar that he buried but finds it missing and confronts Franklin. Franklin tells him that he used it to fix the machine again, and Jude tells the couple that it was time for him to go because he had found a lead on his father's whereabouts in Michigan. Very close to finding Jude, Cornelius and the woman stand outside the York residence watching it closely. After looking around and finding dead birds that were killed by the surge of energy that night before, Cornelius realizes that there must be another chamber around, and they sit in the car observing, and they see Jude drive out of the garbage. Cornelius orders Stella to follow the car and finish the job, while he and Tony look for the chamber. Stella follows Jude to the parking lot, where he was meeting Denise to say goodbye. Suddenly, shots are fired, and the two duck in the nick of time to avoid the bullets. Telling Denise to go home and to get her grandparents, Jude runs away, leading Stella away from his friend. When Denise hurries to her grandparents' house, she finds that they've been taken hostage by Cornelius. He threatens to shoot them unless they reveal the location of the chamber, and fearing for her granddaughter's life, Irene tells him where to find it. Tony speaks up about how wrong what they're doing is, and that she doesn't want to be part of it, and trying to gain her trust, Cornelius calls Stella and tells her to bring Jude back alive. As per her orders, Stella brings Jude back to the house and delivers him to Cornelius. The very cruel man orders Tony to kill Jude, but her mom intervenes, taking the gun from him and pointing at the man on the ground. When Stella was unable to shoot Jude in front of her daughter, Cornelius calls her a traitor and takes the gun away from her. Franklin manages to get free from the zip tie and attacks the man with the gun, and they manage to get him down long enough for Stella to tase him. Once the fighting was over, Stella puts Cornelius back in her van and heads out. She assumes that she can trade the man in the back for her freedom, but while on the road, their car is attacked and they're forced off the road by Hannah and her men. She speaks to Cornelius, who is sure that she's in apostate, and Hannah has her men take them prisoner. Back at the house, the family cleans up the mess, rattled by everything that happened. Denise tells Jude that she wants to go back with him on his journey, and although her grandparents disagree, Denise is adamant about her decision. The family heads down to the chamber where Jude chose the metal plate that can also be used as a key to specify the destination that the portal will take a person to, and Jude and Denise come out the other side, arriving in Bangkok. After they wish Jude and their grandfather farewell, Franklin tells his wife what happened to Byron, and he then decides to go looking for his friend after getting approval from Irene. After searching around on the wasteland planet, Franklin finds a dead man with a knife sticking out of his chest. Suddenly, Franklin's oxygen plummets as he falls unconscious, and fearing for her husband, Irene hurries out, surprised that she didn't need the tank to breathe, and she gets to Franklin, removes his helmet, helping him breathe. When the two walk around, they find what seems to be a whole civilization, a large city located just down the hill. Franklin and Irene then stand at the edge, watching in amazement. If you enjoyed this video, head on over to our second channel and subscribe because we upload awesome recaps on that channel as well. I'll leave you guys the link in the description and the comment section, and I'll see you guys on the next one.